That beautiful chant that Trina just shared with us is in Sanskrit, one of the oldest languages on earth. And now it's mostly used, actually exclusively used in ceremony and spiritual ritual. So it's infused even more so with that kind of energy. And this practice of chanting that very chant or speaking some of the blessings that go along with this practice have the intentions of the kinds of things that you just experienced, the blessings of happiness and freedom and so on that we give to all beings, is a part of a very ancient practice that is grounded in several religions that come out of India: Hinduism, Jainism, and Buddhism. And it's written about in the scriptures of many of these religions, including some that you've heard of, like the Yoga Sutras, the Vedic literature, the Upanishads, and the Pali Canon, to name a few. The blessings such as may all beings be well, may all beings be happy, may all beings be free and at ease. It's a practice called Metta. It stands for, or it means, loving kindness. So it's a loving kindness practice that cultivates kindness within us and offers kindness out into the world. The beginnings of this practice came from when the Buddha actually drew from the ancient texts and things that had come long before him. There probably were many different kinds of practices in place, but it became really well known through actually a historical story of the first time when the Buddha taught metta practice to his monks. There were 500 monks. This particular story was passed down through generations of elders, they say in a chain that was unbroken. In the 5th century, there was a Buddhist scholar who then made it more known that we draw from that version of the story in modern times. And then, of course, we all adapt it too. So this one, the version that I downloaded literally from the internet, is from Marcia Rose at the Mountain Hermitage. And so it goes like this. The Buddha first taught metta to 500 monks who went on a retreat during the rainy season. It was their 3-month retreat. And a particular forest was chosen because next to that forest was a village of people who really supported the monks. And so they built 500 shelters for the monks, temporary shelters for them to be in, and they put alms out in their bowls so that the monks could really focus on their practice. It's a beautiful tradition that the people who really see the value in what those spiritual beings who are really focused on their practice are offering up to the world provide for their physical needs so that they can stay focused on their spiritual journey. And so that's what was being offered to them. So they moved into that particular forest. But the unseen beings, the forest beings known as the devas, what we would translate as deities of the forest, were not happy because after a few days, I mean, they were fine to welcome the monks as guests for a couple of days, but it looked like they were kind of overstaying their welcome. And the devas began to get a little miffed about this. And so they decided that they were going to make it unpleasant for the monks. And so they made all kinds of noises, and they actually created distasteful odors and all kinds of things that began, and even sightings that began to disturb the monks. In fact, the monks became, some of them got fevers and became dizzy, and it became impossible to practice. And so they went to where the Buddha was staying, and they said, we can't practice there. I mean, it is just, I mean, we're getting sick. It's terrible to practice there. And the Buddha said, oh, beloved monks, you will go back to that same forest and you will practice your meditation. But they protested again, we can't. It's impossible to practice there. And he said, dear monks, the problem is that you didn't go with a weapon of protection. And he said, so you opened yourself to all kinds of difficulties and distractions. I will teach you a weapon of distraction, not of distraction, of protection. We don't need anybody to teach us more distraction, do we? And so the Buddha offered to teach this metta practice, which he drew from his Indian scriptures and from the traditions that had come even before him. And so the teaching of metta and the practice of metta was then transmitted to these 500 monks, and they were sent back to the forest to continue their practice. Now, for a while, there was still some anxious feeling and some fears, not the terrified state that they were in before and not the sickness, but just there was still some of that unsettled feeling. But over time, it got quieter. The sightings began to diminish, and the sounds in the forest and the odors began to disappear. And it was because the devas themselves, their resentment and their anger began to diminish. In fact, they started to feel a kind of sense of welcome, even reverence for the monks. They even said that they felt as if they were one family. And so the devas then begin to decide, there was an inclination that arose among them to create an environment of safety for the monks so that they could keep practicing in peace. And that's exactly what happened. So then the monks were able to practice in peace as things got more peaceful inside of them and around them, and they had this extra practice to weave into their meditation practice called metta, or loving kindness. So that is the beginning of that practice. And we are told too that those monks, those 500 monks, during that particular rainy season retreat, all became enlightened. So today we focus on this ancient blessing practice, this thing called metta, or loving kindness, that is available to us both through that beautiful Sanskrit chant and also through this kind of recitation that we do in meditation. So we're going to look at and experience a little bit of both. And this series that we're doing right now is called Prayers of Perseverance. So we're in our third week, and this is our prayer of the day, which is really, steeped in a practice, a meditation practice as well. So we're going to have plenty of time to practice today. Each week that we've worked with a prayer, it's designed to support us through these times, these ever-changing times, these times really of massive transformation, of really a great spiritual awakening. But that great spiritual awakening doesn't necessarily come easily, does it? And it requires of us, it seems to me, perseverance to get through these times, all the changes that have happened in our lives, with this rich opportunity for change within us. But here's the truth. We were born to live in these times. Each one of us wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't divinely appointed for us to be here. So as hard as it may seem at times, let's accept the fact that we signed up for this and we can do this. Trina Brunk offers us some reassurance through this song called Born to Live in These Times. Let's take a pause and watch.
So when fire changes everything, I was born to live in these times. I feel a little bit vulnerable saying that. When I wrote the words, it felt really proud and brave, and right now it's like, oh my gosh. But I was born to live in these times, to love straight in the face of fear, watch it fade and disappear, to walk upon these coals and feel fire singing through my soul. These are times of miracles, the days that blow my mind, the days I stop protecting and let loose with loving kindness. I was born to move between the worlds, to bring to earth these precious pearls from oceans beyond time and space. I was born to live in this holy place right now, right now, right now, right now. loving comfort keeps you locked inside. When was the last time that you opened up your door? Just felt the thrill of being alive. Breathe in the presence of the living God. Let it fill you up with passion. This goes way beyond just strength to face the day, and it joins us from within. The truth's a heartbeat away. We were born to live in these times, to love straight in the face of fear, watch it fade and disappear, to walk upon these coals and feel fire singing through our souls. These are times of miracles, the days that blow our minds, the days we stop protecting and let loose with loving kindness. We were born to move between the worlds, to bring to earth these precious pearls from oceans beyond time and space. We were born to live in this holy place right now. Right now, right now, right now, right now.
Amen. We all have a contribution to make to these times. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a Supreme Court justice who made her transition on Friday. She was known as the notorious RBG. And she gave us a lot of wisdom over the years. And some of that wisdom feels like it speaks directly to this practice we're talking about today, this prayer of loving kindness. One of the things that she said is, don't be distracted by emotions like envy or resentment or anger. She said they just zap your energy and waste your time. So her wisdom was like really pithy and clear. She also said, when a thoughtless or unkind word is expressed, best to tune it out. So it is that as we are encouraged by these kinds of words to move from lower level energies, essentially, to that greater place, not to waste our time with unkindness, as she says, but to move to that deeper place, that greater place of truth, where the divine abode resides. And of course, we all know from experience that we can be humming along, loving everyone, loving life, and then something happens that gets us a little off track, and then maybe a little more off track. And before you know it, our judging minds are so busy. Anybody experience that besides me? And so I think we all probably do. And so we know that having practices like these ground us, bring us back to these truths, these kinds of pithy wisdoms that RBG shared with us. A metta practice of blessing others has the power to transform ourselves from places of where we might feel ill will toward ourselves or to others, to transform that into a place of kindness within us, a softness within us, an openness, as we open the service with this idea of opening the heart, opening the body, opening ourselves so that the energy of spirit can move through us and as us and speak and be that presence in the world. The world sure needs that, doesn't it? I mean, always it needs our spirituality. Always it needs what we can contribute from that place. But right now, during these times, it really feels more urgent, more pressing to me, and maybe to you too, that practice is really important, and then the practice in service to others. The Pali Canon, which is a Buddhist scripture, says this: for the one who attends properly to the liberation of the heart by benevolence, ill will does not arise, or when it does arise, it's abandoned. So when we notice those feelings arising, it's quick for us to be able to let them go and to return to that centered place where we want to live, that place of kindness, of love, of openness, of freedom, of all these blessings we're speaking of in the practice. The other benefits of metta that the canon also shares with us is easy sleep. Isn't that lovely? And easy waking. And dreams, no evil dreams. In other words, no nightmares, it says. That the one who practices is dear to human beings and to non-human beings. And this protected always by the devas, once again, this idea of the deities. This one has a clear mind, has even a bright complexion, and dies unconfused. That's a lot of promise to keep with this practice. So, any clinging state that we might have to negativity, and so that's a key term too. So, it's not just that we're in a negative state, but we tend to cling to that negative state. We tend to sort of wallow in those places where we feel sort of like, we've been done wrong, or we're judging something or someone, or blaming someone or something, including ourselves. And so we kind of can tend to get stuck in the drama of that, even just if it's an inner drama. So it's the clinging to those negative states, the sort of righteousness that comes with that, is what we want to dissolve. And so just recognize that this is just a temporary thing passing through. I like to say, give it safe passage through your mind, or safe passage through your heart. So when we're in practice, we can notice as something arises like this and just let it go. And as we get more and more practice, it happens throughout our day that we can have that kind of awareness, that kind of witnessing to our own behavior, our own thoughts, our own words, and just say, I'm going to give that safe passage. And so that I'm not clinging to it, and I'm able to move to the kind of place I want to dwell in, that divine abode. So, the traditional order of the practice of metta, loving kindness, in terms of the expression of these sentiments or blessings, is that first we bless ourselves, and then we bring to mind or to heart a loved one, and we bless that one. And then we bring a neutral person, a neutral party into our mind or heart. That could be somebody like an acquaintance, or maybe somebody you don't even know their name, but maybe you see them walking at the park all the time, or you see them at the grocery store, or you just have a knowing of who they are. And so that neutralizes things, because where we want to get to is stage 4, which is when we bring in the difficult one, the one who we are having difficulty with right now, or ones if there's more than one. And then when we work with blessing that one. And then finally, it's a blessing of all beings. So let's unpack that a little bit further, because the order suggests and presumes that giving blessings to ourselves is the easiest because it comes first. That's not necessarily true for a lot of us. So, what is important to recognize is this practice is not meant to be rigid, it's meant to be effective. So you can change the order. If blessing yourself right now feels like the hardest one, then don't do that one first. Do whatever is easiest for you right now. So sometimes that can be a loved one. Much like in the lock-in heart math practice, you could bring in a child or an animal, even somebody that would like. There's not any of that stuff around that there might be with even adult loved ones. And so you could start there in that real pure hearted space. The idea is that to open our hearts to the purity that's there, and to make it easier for us to move to the difficult one or ones. And so that when we get to that place, the blessings can flow in a much easier way. The practice can just spill forth from us, and we can feel the effects of that and offer that out into the world as a service. So just trusting ourselves, essentially, that first one, that self-compassion, is so important, in general, because when we ourselves feel compassionate about ourselves, or empathetic, or kind to ourselves, that too really softens us, opens our heart further, allows us to then bless others more effectively. So if you're noticing in life you feel, exhausted, or you feel down or depressed, or you just don't feel that sense of joy or buoyancy, then probably self-compassion is something to reach for. And there are tons of practices out there. You can check out Tara Brach, Kristen Neff. There's all kinds of teachers that are really teaching a lot of effective practices on self-compassion. Another flag for a need for self-compassion is when you're feeling resentful or victimized in some way. It's usually not about something outside of you. It could be that precipitated by something outside of you, but what is really helpful is to bring forth that self-compassion, that kindness to oneself, that love. And so those are some of the markers that we can look for. Even Harvard Medical School says that self-compassion can lower anxiety and depression. So they've done some studies around that. So all of that to say, don't skip the step of blessing yourself. But if you need to change the order, feel free to do that. So for the difficult one, as we move to that, when we're ready for that one, we can just keep practicing until we're ready. So you don't necessarily need to go to step 1, step 2, step 3, and boom, now I'm on the difficult one. If you go into that and you realize, not quite ready to go there, feeling the doors of my heart are starting to close, everything's shutting down, then okay, so we're not ready for that. You could go back into a cycle of some of the ones that are easier until you feel ready. And maybe on that particular sitting practice, you won't feel ready, but maybe tomorrow you will. And so I just want to encourage us to keep at it, to keep trying this, to keep taking on. And maybe this is a new practice to many of you. And so to really try it on, see how it works for you. So the thing about the difficult ones is, how are they difficult, right? So let's look at this story. This actually comes from a Sufi tradition. And in the story, there is a spiritual community that is led by G.I. Gurdjieff. And G.I. Gurdjieff is living in France, leading this community. And there is an old man in the group, in the community, who is every way difficult for everyone in the group. He irritates everybody. He himself is irritable. He's angry. He's got chip on his shoulder. He doesn't help out in any way. He doesn't contribute to the group in any way. And he fights with everyone. And he's unwilling to sort of make things right and to communicate and to go through that process. He himself is really frustrated too. So after several months of trying, he just leaves and he says, I'm headed to Paris. Well, G.I. Gurdjieff follows him, and he talks to him, and he tries to convince him to come back. And the old man says, no, it's just too hard. I'm not doing it. No, I'm not going. So G.I. Gurdjieff has this idea. He says, okay, how about if I pay you a really handsome sum each month, a large stipend, just for you to be a part of our community? And the man, how could he refuse, right? So he's like, all right. So he comes back to the community. The people are aghast. Are you kidding me? He left and you went and got him and brought him back? They can't even believe it. And then they catch wind that their spiritual teacher is now paying the guy to stay. Now they're spending a lot of money to be in this community. And so you can imagine they are up in arms. And so they all get together. And G.I. Gurdjieff listens to everybody's complaints, and it goes on for a very long time, as you might imagine, over and over the same complaints. And finally, he just starts laughing, and he explains, don't you see? This man is yeast for the bread. How would you ever learn about anger and irritability and patience and compassion without someone like him in the mix? He says, you see why you pay me? So I can hire him. And so this is the way that worked for them in that spiritual community. It helps, though, doesn't it, to appreciate our teachers, to recognize those with whom we say are difficult, that they are our teachers. They are the ones who push those buttons that help us, that urge us along the way on our spiritual journey. The premise of the practice of metta is the idea that we are all one. Even the difficult parts of ourselves, the difficult parts of the whole, right? And so it is out of that oneness that we recognize that we have universal needs, that we all have a desire, a need, and a deserving, really, of freedom. We all deserve and want and need kindness and love and connection and all of those needs that we all talk about and know as spiritual qualities. So just as the order can be changed, so too can the statements or the blessings, the things that we are calling forth into our awareness can also be changed to suit whatever it is that we want to express. So maybe it's prosperity or kindness or love or whatever it may be. Metta can be practiced anywhere. You can practice it in a traffic jam. You can practice it when you're in a busy place. You can practice it in the quiet of your own home or your usual place of practice. You can practice it in nature. So, anywhere you want to. The key to this week's practice is to experience it, right? So, I want to take us into a 5-minute practice now to give you a short experience of the two primary forms. And so, first, we're going to start with Sanskrit teacher Leena St. Michael taking us through that same chant that you learned at the beginning, Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. And so you may want to keep your eyes open during that practice because there's movements and the chant. And then we're going to move into a guided practice that will take us through the stages of metta or loving kindness. So during that, you'll see the starry sky, and then that'll be your cue. You can close your eyes if you wish and practice that way. So we invite you now into this practice. Let's experience it.
Om Lokaha Samastaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Lokaha Samastaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Lokaha Samastaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste. I'm Lena St. Michael. Lokaha Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu is one of the most powerful chants, and particularly for our time. Amma, known also as the Hugging Saint, global humanitarian, has asked that we all chant it at least 2 malas, 216 times a day, and envision white flower petals of peace flowing on to the earth like a gentle, gentle snowfall. I'll teach it to you now. If you want, join me standing. This will help the movements to get it through your body. Bring hands in front of the heart. Anjali Mudra. Anjali Mudra is prayer, but prayer as I am, the offering. Beginning with the primordial sound vibration, Om. Om Lokaha, expansive in all the realms of life. Samastaha, so we're just embracing even my plant, my locale, my neighborhood, my family. Sukhino, the sweetness, the peace of life. And Bhavantu, Bhava is the mood or countenance of. And onto is where it's powerful. It's saying, I am that, I commit, I pledge to be this. And so, all together, Lokaha, in all the realms, Samastaha, in my neighborhood, in my locale, Sukhino, there's the sweetness, the happiness, harmony, and peace of life. Bhavantu, and I myself am this. Lokaha Samastaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Namaste.
So I invite you to bring your attention to your heart center as we practice metta, loving kindness, in this form. You may even wish to put your hands on your heart, bless your own being. And so in affirmative unity style, I am free. I am well. I am happy. I am at ease. Letting each statement as you speak it to yourself absorb in your whole being this truth. And turning now to a loved one, allowing that loved one's image to arise and blessing this one in a similar way. You are well. You are free. You are happy. You are at ease. Allowing somebody who you don't have strong feelings for one way or another, somebody neutral, perhaps an acquaintance. And as that person's image arises, bless them. You are free. You are well. You are happy and at ease. Now allowing someone with whom we feel some difficulty to arise in our heart and mind. Blessing them in the same way. You are free. You are well. You are happy. You are at ease. And so too we bless all the beings of the universe, seen and unseen. We are free. We are well. We are happy. We are at ease. And so it is. So when we do these practices, I recommend that you give yourself more time. Obviously, we just kind of give you a little condensed practice session there, but you give yourself a little more spaciousness to go through each stage and maybe some more time for the chant to really seep in. I followed one of Amma's videos that Lena sent me yesterday to chant it 108 times, which she'll teach you about in the class, but that allows it to really, for you to really learn the chant and then to begin to feel the vibration of that. So it's one of the greatest gifts, I think, that we were born to live in these times, and that we as a spiritual community can contribute so valuably, so and in such a way of such great worth, through our spiritual practice. Through this practice, we can offer to people a service, but also bless ourselves with a greater sense of freedom and ease and happiness and so on. And so let's know together that as we practice, that this too is a great offering to our times, to these times that we were born to be in together. Let's bless all beings together. Together, all beings are free, well, happy, and at ease. And so it is. And so you are.